everybody. Here we are again, back in the saddle, October 28th, 2014. Very special guest in the second hour of the show today. Very special guest in the second hour of the show, the one, the only, the man who needs no introduction, Dr. Joel Wallach. Will be in the house on the second hour of this program, which is going to change up the format here a little bit. We are going to go to the phones rather quickly here in the first hour, and then we are going to leave the second hour for no phone calls and an exclusive interview with myself and Dr. Joel Wallach. So I appreciate your listenership. I appreciate your support. If you like what we're talking about and you want to learn more and you're listening on terrestrial radio, then be sure to listen to the commercial break and call the number that your radio station gives out during the commercial breaks. And that number will give you access to a local longevity representative who can show you the ropes and show you how you can best interface with longevity for your own special needs. Listen during the commercial breaks through live terrestrial radio and call the number and find a local representative. You will be connected with a local representative in your area who can introduce you to the undiscovered country of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition brought to you through the agency of longevity. And as always, if you found me all by your lonesome and you want to learn more, 855-347-3696 is the number to call, 855-347-3696. And if you were brought here by a human being, a living, breathing human being who recommended you tune in and turn on, then get with them in order to get information about how you can take your next step. If you're watching on YouTube, which many people are, and you would like to join the worldwide live chat, which is part of our video stream, go to thedrgliddenshow.tv, thedrgliddenshow.tv. There are currently 57 people, working upwards of 60 people in the chat room right now, in the worldwide live free chat room. And that beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. So let's just get right to the phones today. We're going to do this backwards. We're going to get right to the phones in the first hour and then Dr. Wallach in the second hour. Are you tickled pink? You should be, because Dr. Wallach is the man. Let's go to Florida and talk to Angela. Hey, Angela, thanks for the phone call. You are live.
Thank you so much for taking my call, Dr. Glidden. I was calling because I was diagnosed with SVT. It's a form of arrhythmia. This happened like a couple of years ago. I know that I was drinking like excessive amounts of caffeine. And I believe that it possibly could have been triggered by that, but the doctors said impossible. So I'm on metoprolol, I believe that's how you pronounce it, and I really didn't want to go in that direction, but it has helped me. But if I can find something more natural to get rid of these heart arrhythmias, because my heart goes up to like 220 beats per minute when my heart goes out of rhythm.
Well, let's scary. Put it, all right. It's very scary. Whenever the heart is, whenever the heart is at play, whenever the heart is weakened, whenever the heart is symptomatic, it's a very scary thing, because nothing cuts closer to the core of your very being than your heart. So we need to get this under control. But there's a couple things we need to understand by way of perspective, because perspective is important. And my job here is to educate people not only about what's going on inside their bodies, but to help educate people about the methodology brought into the theater here by the MDs, because we need to know what they're good at, we need to know what they're bad at, so that moving forward, you'll be able to make better decisions based on your own behalf, rather than just immediately automatically running to the MD's office, which everybody in this country does. Everybody in North America does. Quite frankly, everybody in the industrialized world does. Everybody just automatically runs to the MD's, even though they are the wrong people for the job here. So your medical doctor, don't you think it's interesting that your medical professional who holds themselves out to be the king and the kings and queens of all things medical, the de facto default go-to people for all things medical, the keepers of the crown, the keepers of the kingdom, the gatekeepers to the doorway of all things medical, the people in whose shoes nobody else is fit to wear. These people have no idea whatsoever what's causing your supraventricular tachycardia. They have no earthly idea what's causing it, and their best solution is not to to discover the cause of the condition, excuse me, not to come up with a cure for the condition, but simply to deliver drugs, the intention of which are to manage the condition. And what they have in their back pocket, Angela, is a pacemaker. They've got you all lined up for a pacemaker surgery. So if this isn't, controlled appropriately by the drug that they have you on, then the next step for them is to go in, thread a little electrode up through an artery or a vein in your leg and work it all the way up into your heart, and then burn the nerves in your heart that make your heart beat and just destroy them. Just vaporize them, just napalm them to death, completely disintegrate and burn. It's called an ablation, which is fancy schmancy doctor talk for slash and burn. And then they're going to insert a pacemaker under your skin, which will artificially control how your heart beats, because man is smarter than God. And, it's really your heart's funky just because, you have a bad heart, and that's just life. There's no possible way to fix it. Let's not try to understand the pathoneogenesis of the illness. Let's just manage it with drugs sold to you at a profit. And then when everything goes bad, we're going to burn the hell out of the heart. We're going to stick an electronic pacemaker into your skin, and this is their rationale.
Yes, that's
right?
True.
It is.
That's exactly what they suggested.
Right.
But I said there has to be a way.
Well, all right. So, and I'm going to tell you what we do here, and it's really not that difficult to get on the other side of. But you have to think to yourself, right? If these people are so clueless, or if this is their approach towards the heart, well, then this must be their approach towards everything else, because really, if you don't know what to do for the heart, what are you going to do? So this is their same approach for everything. It's their approach for high blood pressure. It's their approach for arthritis. It's their approach for fibromyalgia. It's their approach for depression. It's their approach for blood sugar issues. It's their approach for everything. They are not concerned with how to cure it, and this is why we have a healthcare crisis. This is why medical costs are so expensive, because what's the most expensive medical therapy? The one that doesn't work. The one that's not intended to fix the freaking problem. And this is why this country and Canada and England and Ireland and many members of the European Union are being crushed economically beneath the weight of healthcare, because it's not healthcare. It's disease management. And this is what they roll out all of the time, and this is exactly why we have a problem. We don't need to tweak the system, manage or massage the system, the medical system. This is not a problem with the way that medicine is delivered. It's not a management problem. It doesn't need to be tweaked on the front end. It's not an insurance problem. It's a medical problem. It's a medical delivery problem. The medicine that the MDs are trained in is the cause of the problem. It needs to be abandoned. The system does not need to be tweaked. It needs to be abandoned. And there are millions of people just like you, all on the list for the pacemaker, who have drunken the MD Kool-Aid. They don't know that there's any place else to turn. And thank God that you found us. So,
yes.
So we lean on Dr. Wallach, and Dr. Wallach, of course, is going to be my guest in the second hour. Dr. Wallach, after 26,000 autopsies, 10 million histopathologies, that's when you take a little section of the heart, you take a little section of the kidney, you take a little section of the pancreas, and you look at it under a microscope and you analyze what's going on. 10 million of those. After 10 million of those and 26,000 autopsies, he started to see patterns and got a clue. And now from Dr. Wallach's perspective, which is the correct perspective, the vast majority of the time when the heart is beating irregularly, the nerves in the heart are perfectly fine and they are functioning 100% normally. The problem isn't the nerves in the heart. The problem is the spinal cord, because the nerve that goes to your heart to regulate your heartbeat naturally and normally gets to the heart from the spinal cord. The spinal cord goes from the base of your brain all the way to your tailbone. It's like a big electrical cable that goes right down the middle of your back. And all of the nerves, all of the electrical wires that make everything in your body work come off of that central trunk line, which is the spinal cord. And of course, the spinal cord is protected by your backbone. And that's the stuff that the chiropractor adjusts. And in between each individual backbone, and you have about 33 of them, there's a cushion. It's like a feather pillow. It's called an intervertebral disc. And it acts as a cushioning device. Now, if your intervertebral disc is like a feather pillow that's lost its feathers, well, it's not going to be that cushy anymore. And if it just so happens to be the intervertebral disc at the part of your spine where the nerve comes out of the central trunk line that goes to your heart, if that feather pillow has lost its feathers, you're going to cough or you're going to sneeze or you're going to bend over or you're going to turn around to get something, and it's going to squish on that nerve. And when that nerve gets squished, it's going to make your heart beat irregularly. But once the nerve is squished, it's going to take a while for it to recover. So the erratic heartbeats are going to continue. And then guess what? You're going to sneeze again, you're going to cough again, you're going to bend over again, and it's going to tweak it again. The genesis of this problem most of the time is not the heart. It's the intervertebral discs. You stay tuned with me, Angela. I'll tell you how to fix that when we come back. TV. Let's go back to Angela in Florida. Angela, are you still with me?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I'm
So
here.
the down and dirty, easy way to figure out whether I'm right or not is to stand in your bare feet in the hall and measure your height as precisely as you can. And then compare that measurement with how tall you were when you were in high school or college. And if you are shorter than you were in high school or college, then and you have supraventricular tachycardia or any type of irregularity in your heartbeat, then it's a degenerative disc issue most likely. All right. Now, if you have this, if I'm correct, and this is caused by a degenerative disc issue, then you know that your heart is going to be like right on the edge, man. It's going to be right on the edge of beating appropriately and beating inappropriately and beating appropriately and beating inappropriately. And if you take excessive amounts of caffeine on top of that, you're going to tip it in the favor of beating inappropriately. And so the MD is wrong there.
Okay.
Well, you know, so it's kind of like the caffeine wouldn't be causing this problem, but the caffeine is definitely going to be aggravating the problem and making it bigger than it needs to be.
Okay.
Guaranteed. And so the medical doctor just is wrong. And I'm sure that if we did a CT scan of his brain, we would see that it was about the size of a peanut. So in any event, what we want to do here is give that intervertebral disc stuff support, right? So now this is a pretty serious issue, okay? So I'm going to recommend that you go to my website, drglidden.com.
Okay.
drglidden.com, and click on the link that says Become an Insider.
Okay.
Now, that's a $25 a month subscription. You can cancel it at any time. And quite frankly, we give you a 7-day grace period that, you know, we'll give you all your money back after 7 days if you don't like it. So you have absolutely nothing to lose. I did a 1-hour webinar that's available to you as an insider that walks you right through this from start to finish. It explains it with nice pictures and an explanation, and it also tells you what to do. It walks you exactly the steps that you need to go through to get on the other side of this to support and promote the structure and function of the intervertebral discs, and also to calm the inflammation down that's making the heart beat like a rabbit running away from a hound right now.
Okay.
So check that out and apply the therapeutic that I recommend in the atrial fibrillation. Now, the webinar that you want to look at, I've got like 75 webinars in the archives. The webinar that you want to search for and watch is called Atrial Fibrillation. T like Thomas, R-I-A-L, Atrial Fibrillation. It's easy to find. Check it out. Follow the protocol for 4 weeks. The entire protocol, it's like a 3 or a 6 month long protocol, depending on how long it takes for your back situation to sort itself out. But I also have recommendations in there for stuff to do immediately, which should normalize the heartbeat within 48 hours. Okay. So check it out. And, after you're all better, you want to call the person up who recommended you come to see me and come to talk to me and give them a great big hug and a kiss, because if you had not found us, you would have a pacemaker within 12 months, and then it's all over, man, except for digging the grave.
I have one more question. Now, what about getting off of the medication? Can I kind of gradually get off of that?
Yeah, so the recommendation here would be I would pursue my program for 4 weeks.
Okay.
And then I would get in touch with the pharmacist, and I would ask. I wouldn't go back to the MD. I wouldn't go back to him. I just wouldn't do it.
Okay.
Because they're stupid enough to give you this prescription in the first place, and they're stupid enough to tell you something else that's incorrect in the future. I mean, they're just knuckleheads about this. So talk to a pharmacist in 3 to 4 weeks. And say, look, I want to really get off this crap. Tell me how to do it. And the pharmacist will be able to tell you that you can, how to do that. Some drugs you can just stop cold turkey, and some you have to wean off of over 2 days, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, whatever. But the pharmacist will give you a heads up on that, and that's how you should do it.
Awesome.
All right. All right, Angela, we're out of time. Keep up the good work down there in Florida. So glad you found me. Now go to drglidden.com, become an insider, and get your health back. Stick around, folks. Gabriel from Orlando is up next. Let's go to Orlando, talk to Gabriel. The angel Gabriel is amongst us, ladies and gentlemen. Let us all genuflect. Hey, Gabriel.
Hey, Dr. Glidden.
What's going on?
Oh, man, it's so much, but I wasn't going to even call and talk about me today, but tomorrow is my 90th day. I made actually a doctor's appointment so I could fire him on the 90th day.
Well, you know what you should do? You should check to see if the laws of your state allow you to record stuff without the other person's approval. And I'd turn that little video camera on in my pocket, and I'd record the whole thing. I'd put it on Facebook, and I'd watch that. I'd pay money to watch that.
It's great. Listen, since I was supposed to get back with you in 4 weeks, but I've got to tell you, I'm sleeping all night, man. That absorption thing is just unreal. You the man, Doc. I'm crazy about you. But I'm really calling for a friend today. I'll give you my reports later. I signed this young man up, been a long-time friend of the family. And after he bought the health pack, and he hasn't even gotten it yet, we were talking, and he told me he had this skin problem. He signed up as a distributor and everything already. And so he works during this time of day, so I told him to text me. And this is what he told me. Hello, Dr. Glidden. I've been dealing with a skin condition called tinea versicolor.
Yeah, tinea versicolor, yeah.
Okay, since I was a teen. After my last visit to the dermatologist, they explained that it's mutated to something else that I can't remember the name of. It's a combination of skin fungus, skin pigmentation. I noticed that my skin really gets dry in the affected areas, my neck, back, chest, and face. Do you have any recommendations for this issue?
Yeah, so, tinea versicolor is caused ostensibly by out-of-control yeast growth in the skin. And, everybody has yeast living in the skin. I mean, this is an interesting thing to talk about, actually. It's kind of a little tangent I'm going to go off here because I can. But, people that become infected with the HIV virus, as long as they maintain the status of HIV and the body has that relatively under control, they're okay. But once the HIV infection becomes a runaway train, then it goes into acquired immune deficiency syndrome, AIDS. And the problem with AIDS is that it's not the HIV virus that kills people. It's the preponderance of the HIV virus weakens the immune system to such a remarkable extent that normal stuff that our bodies are exposed to every day, that our immune systems are fighting no problem, we don't even think about it every day, the AIDS patient can't. So the AIDS patient will die from a fungal infection, right? The AIDS patient gets a paper cut, and that goes into septicemia, and then they have to cut their hand off. I mean, it's just simple stuff that the immune system can't handle, which is a testimony to the fact that there are bugs in and around the human body all of the freaking time, and the immune system is keeping it all at bay. Now, every once in a while, the system goes a little out of kilter, and one of the bugs gets the upper hand in the situation and then starts to feed and breed, and then, that situation will perpetuate itself if you're under the care of an MD, because the MD is trained to believe that it's the bug that's the problem, when the scientific evidence clearly shows that it's the environment of the body that's the problem. It's not the bug that's the problem. Because if it was the bug that was the problem here, Gabriel, everybody in the world would have tinea versicolor, because everybody in the world has this yeast in their body. It's not the presence of the yeast. It's the environment of the body, which has given the ability of the yeast in his body to run amok. So this is a situation where we need to support the immune system, number one. And number two, we need to help the body optimize sugar metabolism, because one of the main reasons that this happens is sugar is lingering in the bloodstream too long before it gets inside the cells. Sugar is the gasoline of the body. We couldn't blink an eyelash without sugar. I did a really great webinar on sugar, by the way, part of my insider subscription service. Everybody thinks that sugar is the Antichrist. Well, it's not. Your DNA is made from sugar. Your chromosomes are made from sugar. Your body is made from sugar, and you couldn't blink an eyelash without sugar. The problem with sugar is how easily does the body metabolize it, how efficiently, and how much of it are we swallowing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So in people that have tinea versicolor, which is ostensibly caused to an overgrowth of yeast in the skin, well, there's something that's feeding the yeast. Well, what's feeding the yeast? Well, sugar. Well, what's the problem with sugar? Well, the efficiency or lack thereof that the body is metabolizing the sugar with. So we need to hit this on three fronts, actually. So the first thing is, right, everybody stops the 10 bad foods. So this guy's got to stop the 10 bad foods. Number one. Number two, the healthy packs that he should be taking, I would give him one Healthy Body Start Pack 2.0 liquid. A Healthy Body Start Pack 2.0 liquid. One of those, one bottle of Sweeties, one Healthy Body Start Pack 2.0 liquid, one bottle of Sweeties, 2 bottles of selenium, 2 selenium, 1 bottle of plant-derived minerals, and last but not least, 1 bottle of Killer Biotic per 100 pounds of body weight per month. That's the Healthy Body Start Pack 2.0 liquid, 1 bottle of Sweeties, 2 bottles of selenium, 1 bottle of plant-derived minerals, and 1 Killer Biotic per 100 pounds of body weight per month internally. Eliminate the 10 bad foods. And for, 60 days, I would have him just stop eating anything that's got extracurricular sugar in it. So no honey, no maple syrup, no agave, no molasses, no nothing that's got extra sugar in it, okay?
Sugar addict, so that's going to kill him.
Yeah, well, see, that's why he's got this problem. But oftentimes when people are craving sugar and they've got, like a sweet tooth, it's not because they have a self-destructive gene or, they have some inferiority complex and they want to hurt themselves, right? Psychologically, it's because they're minerally deficient. When anybody in your life is craving sugar, the first thing to think of is they don't have enough minerals in their body. And often what we find is when we just give the mineral supplement to somebody, the sugar cravings disappear. And the person doesn't even know. I mean, they weren't even trying not to eat sugar. They just don't want to eat it anymore because it's gone. Why was it there in the first place? Because their medical doctor's an idiot. That's why. So when we get all of this sorted out, he cleans up his diet, he fills up the nutritional tank, the sugar cravings go away, then, the skin slowly starts to bounce back. There's one extra thing he can do here. There's 2 products in Youngevity that he should get topically, and they're both called Pure Works. That's a subsidiary of Youngevity. It's one of the satellite companies that Youngevity owns. It's called Pure Works. Pure Works makes a soap in a bottle. It's a liquid soap in a bottle. I'd like him to get 1 bottle of the Pure Works soap and 1 bottle of the Pure Works foaming cleanser. So instead of using soap, I want him to use the Pure Works soap to wash his body with every day. And after he washes his body with the Pure Works soap, and a couple of extra times during the day, I want him to put the Pure Works foaming cleanser on the parts of his body that the tinea versicolor is on, wherever that is. And I want him to do that 3 times a day. So the topical application of the soap, the Pure Works soap, and the Pure Works foaming cleanser topically, and then internally the diet and the nutritional supplements. And he should see an improvement in this within 90 days. Okay. But remember, man, and this is an important thing for you to understand moving forward because you're going to be a big mover and shaker here in this industry. I can tell it. You need to understand this. This is not a blood sugar treatment. This is not a kill the yeast treatment. This is not an arthritis treatment or a high blood pressure treatment or a fibromyalgia treatment. What we do in Youngevity is we don't treat disease. We support and promote the body's ability to fix itself. And that's what we do. Now, when we support the body, we don't just support the skin. We don't just support the blood. We don't just support the heart. We don't just support the kidney. We don't just support the lung. We support everything because that's the nature of the beast. So when somebody is on Youngevity and they're doing it appropriately, you want to counsel them to look to see how they feel across the board. Not just with this guy, what's happening to the skin. Yes, of course, we expect that to improve, but while he's waiting for the skin to improve, well, how's his mood? How's his energy? How's his appetite? How's his weight? How's his sleep? How's his concentration? How's his sex drive? How are those little nagging headaches that he used to get, or whatever the heck it is, right? And if you can get into the habit of counseling people to check out how this intervention, this medical nutrition intervention makes them feel across the board, then it will give them inspiration and education to maintain the discipline necessary in order to give the program time enough for it to work. Might take him 6 months to get on the other side of this, but in the meantime, right, every couple of weeks there should be an improvement somewhere in his body that he can lean on. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, Doc, and I'm a great student of yours, and I'm already talking like you, so... All
right, Gabriel. Well, hey, man, stay tuned because the master is coming on board for the second hour, the one and the only Dr. Joel Wallach. I appreciate your support and everything that you do. I have to move on, brother. Keep up the good work down there in Florida. My pleasure. Lillian in Utah is up next. Hey, Lillian, thanks so much for the phone call. You are live.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, I've got my mom on the product. She's been on it for about, she's on about 90 days now. And I just am wondering if she's not absorbing because her main thing, she's got a couple of different things, but the main thing was she was the macular degeneration that we were trying to reverse. And the eyes are getting worse. she's like yesterday and today she's had back spasm, and she doesn't have just one every 20 minutes. She has like 20 every minute. And
well, all right. So for back spasms or muscle spasms anywhere in the body, I don't care if it's a little tiny muscle above your eyelid or if it's a major muscle in your back or your leg or your butt. I don't care. Whenever you see a back spasm, you have to do more calcium and magnesium. And a better product to use in that arena for that specific set of symptoms is the Cal Toddy. So how much does she weigh?
She's probably about 55 pounds.
All right. So I'd give her, I would get 2 bottles of Beyond Osteo FX and 2 bottles of Cal Toddy a month for, the next couple of months. And I would give her a half an ounce of each. A half an ounce of Cal Toddy and a half an ounce of the liquid calcium. 1, 2, 3, 4 times a day. I'm going to have to check my math and come back to you on the other side of the break. So stick with me, Lily, and I'm so glad that you called. More to come, ladies and gentlemen. Again, check the live stream out, thedrgliddenshow.tv. Let's go back to Lillian in Utah and sort this out. Yeah, so my math was correct, Lillian. So I'd like you to do a half an ounce of each. A half an ounce of the Cal Toddy and the half an ounce of the Beyond Osteo FX 4 times a day in a little bit of orange juice each time. And I bet if you up the ante with the calcium supplementation, then it will eliminate the back spasms within 72 hours. That's the first thing that I would do. Now remember, whenever we are attempting to increase absorption, we have to eliminate the 10 bad foods. And when we are attempting to support and promote healthy eye function, we need to max out on selenium and the Ultimate Daily Capsules. And then the secret sauce on top of that would be 100,000 ORAC of antioxidants, however you can skin that cat. Does that make sense?
Yes, and she's been doing that. I mean, she's been off the 10 bad foods. She's doing the 100,000 ORAC. She's doing like 3 chocolates a day because she doesn't eat that much. But she can't do eggs. She can do 1 egg. If she does 2, she starts feeling sick. She doesn't do red meat. So it's like I need to get.
Well, is she losing weight or not?
Not really. No, she's kind of maintaining.
Then there's no. This is not a food issue here. That the issue with her is getting enough supplements into the body so that the body can rally and fix the eye condition to the ability that it's able to. Has she seen any improvement anywhere in her body whatsoever?
Not really. Not that she can tell. I told her to go take the Wallach online survey again to see if anything changed, but as she thinks back, I mean, she's not really feeling any better. So we're just wondering if she's not absorbing all this nutrition she's taking.
Well, the only time that medical nutrition fails is if she's not taking the right stuff. She's got an eye condition and she's taking the bone and joint pack, or she's not taking enough, or she's not absorbing it. The only thing that interferes with absorption, is wheat, barley, rye, and oats, unless her just intestinal tract is just smashed by 70 years of wheat, barley, rye, and oats every day. It's unusual.
I'm on fiber. I had her on fiber because that's what I knew before I learned fiber's not good. So I didn't know if maybe the fiber had destroyed the villi and we need to get that villi back up again. And
well, when you stop eating the bad food and you start taking the nutritional supplements into the body, then ostensibly everything will start to come around. But, there are situations like this, especially with elderly people, where it might take 6 months for things to shift. And then, after things start to shift, then the improvement accelerates. It's kind of like a snowball rolling down a hill. But I got to tell you, it's very unusual for anybody, even with strong absorption issues, to not feel any difference whatsoever with the nutritional supplement program in the first 8 weeks. It's very unusual that would happen.
Yeah, that's why I'm feeling.
Yeah. Well, all right. Yeah, so here's what I would do. I would give her for the next 14 days as an experiment, I would give her 1 level scoop of the Beyond Tangy Tangerine in 30 ounces of water 4 times a day. 1 level scoop in 30 ounces of water 4 times a day. Have her take at least an hour to drink each of those down. Increase the calcium to a half an ounce of each 4 times a day, and give her 1 ounce of plant-derived minerals. 1 ounce of plant-derived minerals between meals twice a day. 1 ounce of plant-derived minerals is a standalone product between meals twice a day. See if that gives you some type of leverage. Do that for 14 days, Lillian, and then call me back. I'll look forward to hearing your report. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. The man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Joel Wallach, our very special guest at 6 after the hour. Stay tuned. I am Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health. Thank you so much for tuning in and turning on. This is the Dr. Glidden Show. Back, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health, welcoming you to the second hour of the Dr. Glidden Show. This is Naturopathic Awareness Month. I use October as Naturopathic Awareness Month. Last week we had Dr. Joe Pizzorno on, the founder of Bastyr University and one of the main political movers and shakers in the world of naturopathic medicine, who was very responsible, not solely responsible, but he was the engineer, the conductor of the train of naturopathic medicine that brought the profession out of really the dark ages and obscurity into the mainstream of American medicine, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno. Well, on the other side of the spectrum, we have the clinician of the naturopath's naturopath, the naturopathic physician who has forgotten more about pathophysiology than most, or if not all, MDs know. My colleague, mentor, and friend, Dr. Joel Wallach. I'm going to bring him up in about 30 seconds here. I got to tell you a little story, though, folks. I've been practicing naturopathic medicine for 25 years now, doing the clinical application of naturopathic therapeutics for 25 years. And I've been mentoring with Dr. Wallach for 5 years, more or less, a little more, almost coming up on 5 years now. Now, before I met Doc and before I became a student of Dr. Wallach, I got great results as a naturopathic doctor because it's really hard not to. What we do with naturopathy is support and promote the body's ability to fix itself, and it's kind of hard to muck that up. So I got great results as a naturopath, but I have to tell you, since I got my head out of my rear end and I put my pride on the shelf along with my ego, and I started listening to Dr. Wallach, I started paying attention to Dr. Wallach, I started giving Dr. Wallach the respect that he was due, and I started applying his therapeutics. Honest to God, I do not know what planet I'm on sometimes, because the things that I have seen people recover from under Dr. Wallach's tutelage eclipse in effectiveness by a factor of 1,000 anything that I was taught in naturopathic medical school and anything that I had previously rolled out on my own. I swear to God, Doc has forgotten more about the pathophysiology of disease than any doctor on the face of the planet knows. Dr. Wallach's knowledge base is unimpeachable, and it's unapproachable by anybody else. And it is this extreme knowledge base built upon pragmatic science, pragmatic, non-drug medicine biased research, added to decades of clinical experience, clinical application of applied therapeutics with real patients with real diseases. This is what makes Dr. Wallach's therapeutics so unbelievably effective and so unbelievably effective. And one of the, biggest, I think, overlooked things in the 21st century annals of modern American medicine is Dr. Wallach's track record and Dr. Wallach's clinical effectiveness. All things being equal, as far as I'm concerned, Dr. Wallach should be the Surgeon General of the United States, and if he was, everything would change. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce Dr. Joel Wallach. Doc, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you, Dr. Glidden. You're too kind. I appreciate it, all the kind things you said, and certainly very, very proud of you. You're one of the great doctors of the 20th and 21st century, so you have every right to be proud of everything you're doing to save America, so appreciate all your efforts.
Well, Doc, if I seem tall to people, it's because I stand on your shoulders, and it's not an exaggeration. It's absolutely, positively true. I wouldn't be where I am today clinically if it weren't for you. I certainly wouldn't be where I am today financially if it weren't for you. I wouldn't have a radio program if it weren't for you. And my clinical effectiveness would be good, but wouldn't be where it is today. So, we have to give credit where credit is due. Doc, man, I got to tell you, you are the man. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's interview, which is your book, Epigenetics, and kind of the science of epigenetics and the whole background of epigenetics and what that means and how we can apply that and where we can go, I'd love it if you could share a story about your, coming up in the world here in naturopathic medicine. And there was a particular one, I've traveled all around the country with you, and I've listened to stories that things have happened to you over the last 35, 40 years in your, rolling out network marketing model to the United States community and all of the negative flack that you've had to take for that. And I remember one story particularly about you having to fight a motorcycle gang outside a lecture that you gave. I'm wondering if you'd be kind enough to share that story with the listening audience.
Sure. Well, thank you. It's one of my favorite stories because it's true. When I was sort of a junior owner of my first network marketing company, I owned 49% of a network marketing company. Started out as Eagle International. It went to Soaring Eagle Ventures and then Super Life. And I was making a lot of money. I was making a lot of money because I was seeing thousands of patients a week, literally, because people were coming from everywhere. We were doing radio. It was just kind of wild, and the Dead Doctors Don't Lie thing had come out, and things were going crazy. And so I was getting thousands of patients a week. And so, as you can imagine, I was making lots of money and helping lots of people. Well, the principal, the guy who owned 51% of the business, was jealous of the money I was making, and so he stopped payments to me, and he sold my part of the business to another guy who was actually one of the partners of Arthur Anderson, the accounting company of Enron.
Yeah.
And so he got this guy to come in and do an audit of the company because he wanted to go public. And this guy found out that this guy, being jealous of me, embezzled $3 million trying to keep up with the income that I was generating out in the field. He said, well, he deserved that much, and so he just started embezzling the money. Well, this guy found it, and he said, look, you sell me the company, otherwise I'm putting you in jail. So this guy sold him the company. Well, he forgot that I had a contract that gave me buy-sell rights, so he had to offer it to me first before he sold anybody else. And this character by the name of John Wilson, who was the Arthur Anderson partner, came up to a meeting I was doing in Kansas City and introduced himself as the new owner of the company, Superlife. And I said, really? You're the new owner? Well, congratulations. And I knew I had a battle at my hand then because they cut off my income supply, and I had mortgages of financial property all over the place. I had mortgages of like $80,000 a month and all these properties. They cut off my income. So I immediately had to start my own business, try and catch up if I could. And I said, oh, this is going to be tough, but I'll give it a shot. And so the first meeting was in Santa Cruz, California, because I had been on the radio for 5 years, and I figured I could get a good audience there. And it was a rainy day, April of 1997. And I said, come on out, because we're going to start a new company here. We're going to give everybody good deals, and they educate you and so forth. And this John Wilson hired 3 bike riders, skinheads, tattoos all over them, and they were wearing, it's pouring down rain, they were wearing these denim shirts with no sleeves to show off their tattoos, their big biceps. And they're handing out notices that the meeting had been canceled. And we're upstairs in a big meeting hall, and I could see people coming in the parking lot, but nobody's coming to the building. So we go downstairs, and the guy who was hosting the meeting was Clint Eastwood's driver, a guy by the name of Dio Roberts. and he was one of our top distributors there in the Bay Area. And so he came down with me, big fella, and I see these guys hand out. So I said, "Okay, guys, what are you doing?" They said, "Well, we're canceling your meeting, or canceling the meeting." I said, "Well, it's my meeting. You can't cancel my meeting. I'm not canceling meetings." "Oh, yes, we are." And they handed me one of these brochures that said the meeting's been canceled. So I said to Dio, I said, "Go upstairs, dial 911, tell the cops that we need 5 squad cars here because there's going to be a riot." And I just hope that he remembered when he got to the top of the stairs that he's supposed to call 911 and say, "We need 5 squad cars now because there's going to be a riot." Well, I grabbed a stack of papers from this guy, and he didn't like that, so he took a swing at me. I ducked and let him have it, knocked him down, and I'm sitting on him, wailing away on him, knocking his teeth out. And the other 2 guys are kicking me, broke all the ribs on my right side, put lumps on my head. And 2 minutes into the fight, here comes 5 squad cars with the sirens going. And these cops are not happy getting out of the cars because it's pouring down rain. And so they arrested these guys. So there's 3 of them. They all weighed over 200 pounds. I'm about 150 pounds. So, we're talking about 750 pounds, versus 150 pounds. So they arrested them. So what are you guys doing up here? Where are you from? So we're from San Diego. What? This 850 miles difference. What are you doing here? So, well, this guy, John Wilson, hired us to come up here and break up this meeting. So they're putting all this in the police report. So to make a long story short, we sued these guys and John Wilson in federal court for racketeering because they were breaking up our meeting and causing physical harm to try and intimidate us to not be in competition with them. That's racketeering. RICO laws. And so they're okay, we're going to do okay. And make a long story short, the federal judge, this lady federal judge, she looked at the police report and said to those guys, "You better settle with Wallach because you've already lost the case." Okay? It'd be better off settling with him than coming into my court because I don't want to waste my time. Al, you're doomed in my court. And so the money we got from that settlement started Youngevity. So that's I'll get a few broken ribs and a lump on my head to start a business.
You still have the lump on your head from that fight?
Yeah, I still do have a pretty good egg-sized lump because it's scarred up my skull, I guess. I'm glad the lump's on the outside, not...
Well, it's remarkable, Dr. Wallach, the stuff that you have done in order to, just keep this train moving down the track. Now everybody, of course, is... Well, not everybody, but more people than ever are aware of holistic medicine. More people than ever are leaning in our direction. More people than ever are aware that there do, in fact, exist science-based, clinically verified alternatives to conventional medical mania. But back in the day when you started, man, you were a real pioneer in this arena, and I just can't imagine what it must have been like. I remember listening to a lecture that John Bastyr gave once, of course, the founder of Bastyr University, and years ago, he was the oldest living naturopathic doctor on planet Earth, and he looked at us in class one day and said, back in my day, when I was a naturopath, if you hadn't been thrown in jail, you weren't really considered a real naturopath, and that's how it goes. Stick around, folks. More to come with the one, the only, Dr. Joel Wallach. Our very special guest for the full second hour, Dr. Joel Wallach, the founder of Youngevity and the unrivaled superstar. Actually, the physician who wrote the book, literally, not figuratively, on medical nutrition, my mentor, colleague, and friend, Dr. Joel Wallach. So, Doc, one more story. I can't let you get away without one more story. Please indulge me here. Okay. There was, at one point in time, I believe, lawsuits levied against you by all 50 states in the United States for practicing medicine without a license. Bring the listening audience up to speed with that one.
Actually, that lawsuit was from all the medical organizations in each state, and they went to the state attorney general. And that's because in my original audio cassette tape, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, I said that Alzheimer's disease was not genetically transmitted. That's just fourth-grade biology, because in 1992 there was a newspaper article reporting research that had been done by the Salk Institute and the University of California, San Diego. Big headlines in the newspaper. It said, large doses of vitamin E can help Alzheimer's patients. Well, that's fourth-grade biology. There's no vitamin, no reading a book a month, no walking around the block eating more bananas is going to change how a genetically transmitted disease manifests itself. Only either killing the carrier of the gene or sterilizing the carrier of the gene is going to change how a genetic disease manifests itself in a population. So as soon as they said that large doses of vitamin D can actually make the clinical disease better, that tells you immediately fourth grade biology is not genetic. Well, I said that, and that all these state associations went to the state prosecutor and asked for a demand warrant, which they did. They served me with demand warrants, and one of them, the funniest one, was there was a guy, I was giving a lecture in Kansas City when that first happened, and this sheriff, he reminded me of Buford Pusser, you know, from one of the movie with all the truckers. What was that movie? Buford Pusser?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at any rate, this big old fat sheriff from Topeka, Kansas comes in with one of these demand warrants. He says, I'm here to take you back to Topeka, Kansas right now. I said, well, I got to go give a lecture first. Can I wait and read the papers after I give my lecture? He says, son, you have no idea what I'm talking about here. He whips out his nightclub, or whatever you call it, his club. He's going to beat me with it and shows me his handcuffs. You going to come peaceful, or you're not going to come at all? I said, okay, let me look at the papers. He shows me the papers. I said, oh, you're from Topeka, Kansas. He says, I just told you that. He says, the judge gave me these papers to bring you back for a demand warrant. You got to answer to these questions whether or not what you're saying is true. If you can't prove it's true, you're going to jail, boy. I'm taking you there. I said, well, I don't think so. And this guy got mad. Smoke's coming out of his ears. He said, you don't understand. I'm going to hit you with this club, and I'm going to cuff you and drag you out here. I said, well, sir, first you better understand. You're from Topeka, right? You came all this way to arrest me, right? Yes, sir. He says, how many times do I have to say this, boy? And I said, well, you're from Kansas. Yep, I just kept rubbing. And finally I said, I'm in Missouri right now. This is Kansas City, Missouri you're in. You're not even in Kansas. You have no authority here. You cannot arrest me here. And if you go to the front desk, and if I'm in Kansas, I will go with you peaceful. But if I'm not in Kansas, don't come back. He didn't come back.
So how did the lawsuits resolve? All 50 states are, levying charges against you for practicing medicine without a license. What happened?
Well, what happened was I got a certified copy of that article in the newspapers and sent a copy of my audio cassette tape, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, to all 50 states, all the attorney generals. 48 of them dropped the charges. 2 of them, Arizona and Michigan, insisted that I come there for a pretrial hearing to see if not the complaint by the state associations were worthy of a trial. And so I got a gang of lawyers and went there and had to give my full presentation in front of the judge with all my slides showing him how that fit into my lecture. And he dismissed each one of them, both in Michigan and in Arizona, dismissed. So all these state medical associations had to pay for my legal fees because they lost everything. And so here we are today. But I mean, as you say, these 2 stories are just 2 of hundreds and hundreds of them over the years. And in fact, you've heard of the Quackbusters, which is the Committee Against Medical Fraud. Most people think that's a government agency. And really, it was just the 6 medical doctors sitting around drinking some wine and saying, let's form a nonprofit organization. Let's go after a bunch of these naturopathic doctors and harass them and make their lives miserable. And we'll make it nonprofit so everybody will donate money and help our expenses. And one of them was by the name of Victor Herbert, another one was John Renner, and there were 3 others. And those 2, John Renner and Victor Herbert, both died in their 60s. John Renner was killed by his colleagues on the surface.
Hey, hold on, Doc. We're up against the hard break. I got to hear the end of this story. Ladies and gentlemen, stick around. You don't want to miss the ending to this story. I'm Dr. Glidden, and this is the Dr. Glidden Show. Without people like Dr. Joe Pizzorno, Dr. Joel Wallach, it would be mission impossible. But thank God for the few and the proud who have taken a stand for your health, taken a stand against the conventional insanity brought to the marketplace and doled out as the epitome of medicine by the conventional medical society. Thank God for physicians like Dr. Wallach. So, Doc, let's finish up the story. So about the Quackbusters. So a bunch of MDs get together, figure out, let's give the naturopaths and the chiropractors and the homeopaths a hard time. They form an organization called Quackbusters, and then they start dropping like flies.
Well, yeah, the original organization, and even yet today, is called the Committee Against Medical Fraud. and it became affectionately known amongst themselves the Quackbusters. But officially, it was a nonprofit organization called the Committee Against Medical Fraud. And Victor Herbert was the leader of the pack, and he was actually in a cover article in Time magazine. The cover picture was a cartoon of him jumping up and down on vitamins and minerals, bottles of vitamins and minerals. It was kind of a cartoon picture of him doing that, and they had a whole big article in there about them and all the wondrous things they do to protect the world. And he died of cancer. That's Victor Herbert. And then John Renner, he was a big, way overweight guy from Kansas City. He actually came to one of my lectures in Kansas City and was handing out papers saying what a fraud I was and trying to break up our meeting. We had a woman there by the name of Barbara Nicholson, and she was a horse farmer, big, gal and throwing bales of hay around. And so she literally picked him up by the belt and by the scruff of the neck and threw him down 3 flights of stairs. I actually have that on film. And then his colleagues later killed him on the surgery table during a bypass surgery. Another one by the name of William Jarvis, who was a professor of medicine at Loma Linda School of Medicine in California, Loma Linda, California. And he, after I started going after them, he gave up that sort of thing with the Quackbusters and became the spokesperson, the front face of the Center for Disease Control when they made news releases. His name was William Jarvis, as far as I believe he's still alive. And then Stephen Barrett was another one of their people, and he lost everything in several lawsuits where several chiropractors and naturopathic doctors sued him, and so now he lives in one of these little 2-bedroom houses. It costs $50, kind of thing, a little cardboard house like a dog house, and he works out of his basement with a door on top of 2 sawhorses with a computer, and that's how he is still trying to raise havoc amongst the naturopathic doctors, but he's not being very successful.
Interestingly enough, my fiance's former employer, the Doctors Data Diagnostic Laboratory in St. Charles, Illinois, has been involved with an aggressive lawsuit suing actually Stephen Barrett and the Quackbusters, giving them a taste of their own medicine. Finally, somebody stands up and takes a swing back at these guys. And that's really the only way you're going to get a bully to cease and desist, is if you stand up and punch him square in the nose. Dr. Wallach, we could talk for literally days about your escapades and your adventures in bringing the truth of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition to the masses. But let's dig in here and talk about your newest book and one of my most favorite medical subjects to talk about, epigenetics. How would you like to start that?
Sure. Okay, well, thank you so very much. Very kind. And epigenetics, I knew about epigenetics before there was such a word, epigenetics, because I was working with Marlon Perkins from the old Mutual Wild Kingdom show. I've been in Africa working on the White Rhino Conservation Project, caught 200 white rhino and sent them back here. So if you see a white rhino in a zoo or wild animal park, it's either one that I caught or offsprings of the one I caught. We were moving them around to safe places throughout the game parks in Africa. And back when I was working on that in the 60s, 65 through 67, there was something they counted like 600. Well, now there's 20,400 in the wild and 700 in captivity. So I'm just really proud that we were able to save that species. And Perkins called me back in 67 and said, we've got this project, and I'd done a lot of pathology work as a graduate student while I was still in veterinary school. Wrote the first paper on a mass die-off in America from pollution. I'm sure it happened before, but nobody recognized it. Got it published, went around the world several times giving lectures on the subject. And he says, we're going to do a pathology and a pollution research on animals that die in the zoo from natural causes and people who live in close proximity to the big zoos in the United States who die of natural causes because the animals and people share the same water supply, they have the same air supply, and much of the same food. And since you wrote the first paper on a mass die-off from pollution in America, we want you to be the pathologist. So I came back from Africa, did that for 10 years, and basically did the 20,000 autopsies, 17,000 of them changed, and over 454 species of animals and 3,000 human beings. And we did 10 million chemistries and 10 million slides of special stains looking for pollution as the contributor to or cause of degenerative diseases. And it turns out that pollution had nothing to do with any diseases resulting in natural causes. All the diseases that resulted in deaths from natural causes in animals and humans were caused by nutritional deficiencies. And the 1,200-page book that came out of that, it's 1,200 pages of all this data, is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure, so I'm very, very proud of that. And that became the basis of epigenetics, because at that time I'm seeing diseases like type 2 diabetes in alligators. I'm seeing diseases like cerebral palsy in foxes and zebras. Diseases were supposed to be genetically transmitted in people. Cystic fibrosis, I ran into that in 1977 when I was working at the Yerkes Primate Center at Emory University, and tracked it back using the same techniques I used in the zoos. And sure enough, they found that cystic fibrosis, which was held up as a classic example of a genetically transmitted disease, mama would have, theoretically, mother would have a recessive gene, daddy would have a recessive gene. They get together, the baby wins the lottery and has both recessive genes, and it comes out with cystic fibrosis. Well, it turns out that cystic fibrosis is caused by a deficiency of the mineral selenium during pregnancy, and because it's a biochemical problem, it's reversible even 25 years after the baby's born. I can reverse it, eliminate the genetic markers, and so on. And they fired me because they said, Wallach, you must be sniffing glue. Everybody knows that cystic fibrosis is a genetically transmitted disease. And no, it's not. Don't I get to defend my research like a PhD does to a committee that has to defend his research? No, we'd be so embarrassed to call together a committee for that because everybody knows it's genetic, and they fired me. That forced me to go back to school, and I became a naturopathic physician. And so I could treat kids. Well, I was starving to death because the government was giving away free treatments. Although they were wrong, they were giving away free treatments, and people were going for the free treatments. Nobody's coming way out to Portland, Oregon to get treatment from a guy that got fired for being a nut, right? And so I had to learn how to deal with arthritis and high blood pressure and heart disease and lupus and Alzheimer's disease and macular degeneration, kidney failure and lupus and all that kind of stuff. Just to make a living. I was a widower at the same time. I had the poor little kids to deal with. And there's still the word epigenetics hadn't been put together. But I knew that all the diseases I was seeing in humans are the same ones we'd eliminated in animals with just nutrition. So I would use nutritional programs for my human patients, and it worked. And again, to make a long story short, about 10, 12 years ago, the word epigenetics came out. And epigenetics is simply the ability to maximize your genetic potential for longevity, for health, for fending off disease, for intelligence, for speed, for strength, all the things you want. But you're not going to get there without giving your genes, your DNA, your RNA, and your telomeres, the end caps on your chromosomes. You're not going to get there without giving them everything that your genes, your DNA, your RNA, and your telomeres require. Yep. An example would be if you have a car, we go 300,000 miles. If you do everything that the maintenance manual says to do, change your oil every 1,000 miles with a very expensive $25 quart oil. But you're a Scotsman and you say, that's by my gosh, that's too expensive. I'm going to put 6 quarts of dirt from North Dakota in there because everybody knows there's lots of oil in North Dakota. And there's bound to be a little bit of oil in that dirt, and so I'll just do that. Well, that car's not going to go 300,000 miles. It probably won't go the distance that one tank of gasoline would take. It might not go 50 miles. Well, the same thing is true if your grandmother lived to be 108 and your granddaddy lived to be 102, and they were hellions, and they're drinking and smoking and doing drugs all night, and they were sleeping and gambling all night in smoke-filled casinos, and they lived to be 102 and 108. You say, man, I've got good genes here. You try the same thing, you die at 48 of a heart attack. Well, that's because you didn't do the same thing, even though it was unknown to them what happened. By dumb luck, they lived in a place that had the minerals in the soil, and the food they were eating was able to protect their genes and their DNA and RNA and their telomeres from starvation. Well, if you're eating food that doesn't have those minerals in there, just simple things like cooking in oil instead of butter will kill you. And so this is now epigenetics, and I'm very proud of the committee that gives away the award for the, I guess it's the International Organic.
The Klaus Schwartz Award for Trace Mineral Research.
Exactly, research. Yeah, and so I was the first naturopathic physician and the first veterinarian to get the award. For 28 years, I've all been medical doctors with PhDs. And the awards committee that chose me that year said that I must be considered one of the founders of epigenetics because of my work with the selenium deficiency and the cystic fibrosis monkeys in 1977. And that was quite an honor to be considered now one of the founders of epigenetics. And we know that genetics is a failed medical theory, just like evil spirits causing disease and spontaneous generation and the four humors being out of balance and that kind of stuff, witchcraft. All that's gone. Well, the same thing at March 22nd, 2013, the last nail was driven in the coffin of genetics, and now pops up epigenetics, and I'm considered one of the founders. Well, why did genetics go away? Well, that's because the guy who got the Nobel Prize in 1953, James Watson, are proposing the double helix as a structure of DNA. He got the Nobel Prize along with Francis Crick in 1962, 9 years later. Everybody agreed that the double helix was the structure of DNA. In 2013, he was asked by the Salk Institute and the University of California to give a status report because in 2003, the human genome was mapped out. 10 years had gone by. Nobody had prevented a disease, reversed a disease that was thought to be genetically transmitted. And so he gets up in front of this crowd, the 300 illustrious scientists, including Nobel Prize winners, heads of departments of medical schools and departments of genetics and so on. He gets up in front of this illustrious group and says, all the experiments we've done in genetics over the last 60 years have been irrelevant. You can sequence, and I'm quoting him now, he said, you can sequence 150,000 people a day that have cancer, diabetes, and other diseases thought to be genetically transmitted, and you're never going to cure anybody because all the experiments we've done, again, over the last 6 years have been irrelevant. It's not genetics. It's all chemistry, biochemistry, a.k.a. nutrition, and that's why we're not going to be able to, we've run down the wrong rat hole for the last 60 years. And, of course, he was exactly right on, and I saw that back when I was doing all those autopsies in the zoos in the 1960s. All these human genetic diseases were found in animals, really weird stuff that should have been only in humans were found in all these various species of animals, so I knew it couldn't be genetically transmitted, but there was no such word as epigenetics back then. It is today. And so if you take all 90 essential nutrients, the 16 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 essential amino acids, 3 essential fatty acids, and optimal amounts for your body weight, again, you're going to give your genes, your DNA, your RNA, your telomeres, everything they need to maximize your genetic potential for longevity.
And that beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. Ladies and gentlemen, the myth of modern American medicine will persist and will, what it's going to take for it to go away is one death at a time. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health, here with my mentor, colleague, and friend, Dr. Joel Wallach. So, Doc, here's the way it goes, right? Initially, the MDs say all chronic diseases are caused by ill humors and witchcraft, and you need to bleed yourself to the bone in order to get all that bad stuff out, and they were wrong. Then they say that, it's all bugs and it's all germs, and even though Beauchamp says it's not the germ, it's the environment of the body, the MDs go crazy trying to come up with antibiotics to kill the bug instead of change the terrain of the body, and now we have the pandemic of antibiotic-resistant bacterial infections. And then they were wrong, and then the MDs say, "Whoa, it's all genetics. All your chronic diseases are all caused by genetics." And now the latest theory of epigenetics proves that they're wrong. When is it going to end, do you think? That collectively we are going to wake up from our genuflection, our unerring, unswerving genuflection at the altar of allopathic medicine. I mean, how many times are they going to have to get it wrong for the collective consciousness of humanity to snap out of it? Your thoughts?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head here, Dr. Glidden. Basically, what's going to happen here is that people are going to have to stop using the doctors. It's kind of like the old Noah days. Noah tried to tell everybody that it's going to flood, and it hadn't even rained yet, and so nobody knew what he was talking about, and everybody drowned except his 8 immediate family members. Well, here's what's happening now. Because of all the medical stuff, the medical theory was that the reason why so many people in America are sick is because they're not getting enough medical treatment, right? So they talked the government into coming up with the Affordable Health Care Act, so more people living under the bridge can get medical care. It's going to save America. Well, it turns out the medical doctors, according to the Center for Disease Control, kill, injure, and infect 15 million of their customers at their workplace every year. They don't even get an OSHA ticket. In the hospital alone, each year, that caused 2 million infections, of which 90,000 died. If Iran or North Korea were to do that, we declare war on them. And here we have one trade that does it annually, yearly, and nobody raises an eyebrow. And so we're going to save a few. We're not going to save them all, but I just can't thank you enough for getting out there. I just love Fire Red and the Now. It's just really a great title, really great stuff. And we have to point out very clearly that medical doctors are dangerous. They treat symptoms because there's no law requiring them to cure you when there's a cure available. And here's where you and I and other like-minded physicians, naturopathic physicians primarily, are making sure that you give the body the right raw materials and the body will, in fact, heal itself. If a person is spiritually motivated or spiritually orientated, you believe that God made us in His own image, and certainly God doesn't have hemorrhoids, and God doesn't have macular degeneration, God doesn't have Alzheimer's disease, thank goodness, and so forth. And I love it. I don't know if you've seen this. There's this new drug out for diabetes. How wonderful it is on TV. They're advertising like crazy. And 5 minutes later, there's one of these 1-800-BAD drug ads for the same drug. It causes heart attacks. 5 minutes later, the same drug, 1-800-BAD drug, 5 minutes earlier, saying all the wonders of this drug. And so, as you say, it's a herd mentality. People see these guys, these big billion-dollar hospitals. They must know something. They have billion-dollar hospitals. Well, they've raped and pillaged their mother's bank account to get that money. And each year, according to the Institute of Medicine, medical doctors steal $750 billion. That's $750 billion. That's 1/3 of the medical budget each year. 30 cents out of every medical dollar they bill their patients and their patients' insurance companies is fraudulently billed for procedures they didn't do, or procedures they did do but the patient didn't need, just so they could pay for their kids to get in college. And nobody, Bernie Madoff went to jail for life plus 150 years for defrauding his investors of $3 billion. Here's medical doctors defraud their customers of $750 billion each year, $750 billion. Not one of them goes to jail for that.
It's good to be king, ladies and gentlemen. It is good to be king. And this is what happens when a medical monopoly, and a monopoly of any sort, is allowed to exist in any aspect of society. Ladies and gentlemen, fire your medical doctor now, for goodness sake. Get on board with Youngevity. Get in touch with a local Youngevity representative. Call the number given out by your terrestrial radio station. Get in touch with your local Youngevity representative and let them issue you a free pass to the undiscovered country of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition laid out for us by none other than Dr. Joel Wallach. Doc, just not enough time in the day. I appreciate you. We will have you back in the future. Until then, live long and prosper.